Hello friends, welcome aboard the Sleepy Fairy Tale Express. I'm the Red Mermaid. This train is a dream journey to fairy tale land. Have you all got your train tickets? Subscribe and hit the like button to always be able to ride. Close your eyes, prick up your ears, and listen in a comfortable position. Today's story is The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. On Christmas morning, the cold winter air gently seeped through the window, enveloping Marie's room. Outside, snow had blanketed the ground like a white quilt, and Marie's house was filled with a cozy Christmas atmosphere. The morning sunlight softly illuminated the room, making the decorations on the walls and the sparkling Christmas tree shine even brighter. The tree was adorned with ornaments of various sizes, with the most eye-catching being the golden star at the top. Beneath the star, red, green, and silver lights twinkled, enhancing the festive spirit of Christmas. Underneath the tree, numerous gift boxes were placed, each wrapped beautifully with red ribbons and golden paper. The largest boxes, intended for Marie and her brother, stood out the most. Marie's eyes sparkled as she looked at the gifts. Among the boxes were small cards that read, "To Marie and to brother" in warm handwriting. Inside the house, Christmas carols played, adding to the warm atmosphere. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. The cheerful sound of the song matched the family's bright expressions as they welcomed the morning. In the kitchen, their mother was preparing a special Christmas breakfast, with the savory smell of baking cookies and the sweet aroma of hot cocoa filling the house. Marie pulled back the soft blanket and got out of bed to look out the window. The snowy scene outside looked like something out of a fairy tale, and she gazed at it in awe for a moment. Turning back into her room, Marie took off her warm pajamas and put on a red dress she had prepared for Christmas. Her hands moved gently and carefully. The red dress, with its white lace trim, made Marie's face glow even brighter. Marie's brother also emerged from his room and rushed towards the Christmas tree. "Marie, come quickly. There are so many presents." Hearing her brother's excited voice, Marie smiled and hurried to the tree. The siblings sat under the tree, their eyes shining as they looked at each other's gifts. The warmth and excitement of Christmas morning filled the entire house. "Marie, here is your gift." Marie's uncle approached with a bright smile, holding a gift box that sparkled under the Christmas tree. The box was large and beautifully wrapped, decorated with red and green ribbons that caught Marie's eye. She gently touched the ribbon with her fingertips, looking at the box with eyes full of anticipation. Carefully opening the box, what appeared before Marie's eyes was a magnificent nutcracker. The nutcracker resembled a traditional German soldier, with a uniform adorned in deep blue and gold. His hat was a black fur cap, embroidered with golden patterns along the edges. The nutcracker's face was made of smooth white wood, with blue eyes, a prominent nose, and red painted lips. His mouth was designed to open and close, allowing him to crack nuts. "Wow! It's amazing!" Marie exclaimed in awe. She held the Nutcracker in her hands, examining it closely with shining eyes. The intricate details of the Nutcracker captivated her even more. His uniform was adorned with tiny buttons and elaborate shoulder decorations, and he held a small sword in his hand. The Nutcracker's black boots were meticulously carved down to the toes. Marie gently stroked the Nutcracker and thanked her uncle. "Thank you so much, Uncle. This is the most wonderful doll I've ever seen." Her uncle smiled and said, "I'm glad you like it, Marie. This Nutcracker is said to have special magic." Marie's curiosity grew even more. Marie carefully carried the Nutcracker to her room and placed it gently on a small table beside her bed. "Nutcracker, do you really have special magic?" Marie whispered softly. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. She stared at the Nutcracker, lost in thought for a while. Marie's brother discovered his gift under the Christmas tree, his eyes gleaming with excitement. The box was slightly smaller than Marie's, but it was still wrapped beautifully in silver paper with a golden ribbon. He carefully opened the box, revealing a splendid toy soldier. The soldier was dressed in a uniform adorned with red and gold, and he wore a tall hat with a feather on top. The toy soldier's face looked strong and determined. His blue eyes were clear and bright, his nose sharp, and a slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. The uniform was intricately made, with small gold buttons lined up in a row. Gold shoulder decorations adorned his shoulders, and a detailed belt was fastened around his waist. In his hand, he held a silver sword, and his boots were made of shiny black leather. The brother held the toy soldier, delighted, and examined it closely. "Wow, this is amazing," he exclaimed, carefully touching the soldier. The weight and sturdiness of the toy gave him a sense of trust, and he decided to treasure the soldier even more. As he gazed at the toy soldier, the brother's imagination began to soar. "This soldier must be a brave warrior," he thought to himself. He envisioned embarking on adventures with the toy soldier, leading it bravely into battles against imaginary foes. The soldier's valor and strength inspired him greatly, and he resolved to spend many hours playing with his new companion. However, his curiosity was soon drawn towards Marie's Nutcracker. Unlike his toy soldier, Marie's Nutcracker had a unique design and function that intrigued him. He looked at the Nutcracker with eyes full of envy and curiosity. Marie and her brother played together with their new toys. The brother held his toy soldier, while Marie held her Nutcracker. When Marie placed a nut in the Nutcracker's mouth, it cracked with a satisfying snap. "That's amazing! The nut cracks so easily," Marie said, her eyes sparkling. The brother was equally impressed by the Nutcracker's function and enjoyed the moment with her. As he played under the Christmas tree, Marie's brother's curiosity and jealousy towards her Nutcracker grew. While his toy soldier was impressive, the Nutcracker's uniqueness and interesting function fascinated him. "It's amazing that it can actually crack nuts," he thought, closely observing the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker's movements and sounds captivated him. Approaching Marie, he said, "Marie, can I try cracking a nut with the Nutcracker too?" Marie hesitated slightly, but, seeing the earnest look in her brother's eyes, handed over the Nutcracker. "But be careful, if you handle it too roughly, it might break," she cautioned. The brother held the Nutcracker and felt its weight. The sturdy wood and intricate assembly of the Nutcracker were palpable under his fingers. He opened the Nutcracker's mouth and placed a small nut inside. "Nutcracker, let's see you crack this nut," he said excitedly. He carefully closed the Nutcracker's mouth, and with a satisfying snap, the nut cracked. The brother looked at Marie with amazement. "Wow, that's really cool." However, his curiosity grew even more. He wanted to try cracking a larger nut. "I wonder if this one will crack too," he thought, placing a large nut in the Nutcracker's mouth. Marie watched with concern and said, "Brother, stop. The Nutcracker might break." But the brother, ignoring her warning, exerted more force as he opened and closed the Nutcracker's mouth. The nut did not crack easily, and the brother applied even more pressure. Suddenly, with a snap, the Nutcracker's jaw broke. The brother stopped in shock, and Marie, seeing the broken Nutcracker, burst into tears. "Oh no, my Nutcracker," she cried, holding the Nutcracker tightly. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at the broken jaw. The brother felt a momentary pang of guilt but quickly shrugged it off, saying, "It's not really hurt, it's just an ugly wooden doll." His careless words made Marie feel even sadder. "No, you're the ugly one. I hate you," she shouted, hugging the Nutcracker tightly. Thus began a special night for Marie and her Nutcracker. Marie clutched the Nutcracker and burst into tears. Seeing the Nutcracker's dangling jaw, she was deeply shocked. The Nutcracker was not just a toy, it was a special gift filled with the joy and excitement of Christmas morning. Marie carefully lifted the Nutcracker and examined it closely. The Nutcracker's jaw was made of thin wood, and it had cracked under the pressure. Tears streaming down her face, Marie hugged the Nutcracker tightly. "Oh no, my poor Nutcracker. What should I do?" Her tears fell onto the Nutcracker's sparkling uniform. The Nutcracker's blue eyes seemed to understand her sorrow, shining quietly. Marie paced around her room, holding the Nutcracker, until she approached a small desk in the corner. She opened a drawer and took out some glue and a small brush. "I wonder if I can fix it with this," she whispered. Carefully aligning the Nutcracker's jaw, Marie used the brush to apply a small amount of glue. While waiting for the glue to dry, she spoke softly to the Nutcracker. "Nutcracker, it must hurt a lot. I'm so sorry. My brother was too rough." Her touch was gentle and precise. Marie held the Nutcracker still for a long time, waiting for the glue to set. Eventually, the jaw was back in place, but it still looked fragile. Marie decided not to move the Nutcracker until the glue was completely dry. "You'll feel better soon. Don't worry." She smiled warmly at the Nutcracker. At that moment, her brother walked into the room. Still with a nonchalant expression, he said, "It's not really hurt. It's just an ugly wooden doll." Marie's anger flared up again. "No, you're the ugly one. I hate you," she shouted. Her brother smirked and left the room. Marie hugged the Nutcracker tightly again. "You're not ugly at all. We can sleep together, right?" she whispered to the Nutcracker as she carefully placed it on the small table beside her bed. Marie pulled the blanket over herself and lay down, gazing at the Nutcracker until she fell asleep. Outside, the snow continued to fall gently, and the room was warm and peaceful. While Marie slept, her room became still and quiet. The snow outside fell more heavily, tapping softly against the window, sounding like someone gently knocking. The tear stains on Marie's face still glistened, and even in her dreams, she worried about her Nutcracker. In the dead of night, Marie suddenly woke up, feeling a chill. It was because of the cold air seeping in through the window. She quickly pulled her blanket tighter and looked at the Nutcracker sitting beside her bed. "Nutcracker, are you in pain?" Marie whispered softly. Seeing the Nutcracker's broken jaw not fully healed brought tears to her eyes again. She carefully lifted the Nutcracker and held it close to her chest. The Nutcracker's eyes seemed to understand her sorrow, shining even in the darkness. Marie carried the Nutcracker over to her small desk. On the desk, the glue and brush were still there. She examined the Nutcracker's jaw again, realizing that the glue hadn't fully dried. "This won't do. I need to find another way," Marie resolved. She opened the desk drawer and took out some bandages. "Maybe this will help a little," she thought as she gently wrapped the bandage around the Nutcracker's jaw. As she wrapped the bandage, Marie whispered through her tears, "Nutcracker, I promise I'll fix you. Don't worry." Her touch was gentle and precise. Once the bandage was securely in place, she sighed in relief and set the Nutcracker back on the small table beside her bed. "You'll feel better now. Don't be in pain and rest well," she smiled warmly at the Nutcracker. At that moment, her brother entered the room. With his usual indifferent expression, he said, "What pain? It's just an ugly wooden doll." Marie's anger flared up again. "No! You're the ugly one. I hate you," she shouted loudly. Her brother smirked and left the room. Marie hugged the Nutcracker tightly once more. "You're not ugly at all. We can sleep together, right?" she whispered to the Nutcracker as she carefully placed it back on the small table beside her bed. Marie pulled the blanket over herself and lay down, gazing at the Nutcracker until she fell asleep. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, and the room remained warm and peaceful. The morning light streamed through the window, reflecting off the snow-covered ground, but Marie still felt downhearted, worried about her Nutcracker. The sunlight was bright and dazzling, and the snow that had fallen overnight blanketed the surroundings. However, Marie's heart felt heavy, as if it were shrouded by dark clouds. As soon as she woke up, she looked at the Nutcracker beside her bed. Seeing the bandaged jaw, tears welled up in her eyes again. At that moment, her brother entered the room. He continued to tease Marie, mocking her beloved Nutcracker. "Marie, your doll is really ugly. It's just a piece of wood. Why do you treasure it so much?" His words deeply wounded Marie. She felt anger rising, but tried to respond calmly, swallowing her tears. "No, brother. The Nutcracker is special. It's not just a piece of wood. It has magic inside it," Marie said firmly. But her brother just laughed and replied, "Magic? There's no such thing, Marie. It's just a wooden doll." His indifferent words made Marie unable to hold back any longer. "No! You're the ugly one. I hate you," she shouted. Her voice filled the room, and her brother stopped for a moment. Seeing Marie's angry face, her brother smirked. "You're really mad, Marie. But you have to accept the truth," he said coldly as he left the room. Marie, tears streaming down her face, hugged the Nutcracker tightly again. She looked into the Nutcracker's eyes and whispered, "You're not ugly at all. We can sleep together, right?" Marie carefully placed the Nutcracker back on the small table beside her bed and lay down, pulling the blanket over herself and gazing at the Nutcracker. Reflecting on the quarrel with her brother, Marie felt a deep sense of protectiveness for the Nutcracker. She believed it was more than just a toy and was determined not to lose it. With a renewed sense of devotion and protection, she resolved to find a way to fully repair the Nutcracker. As night deepened, the house grew quiet. Outside the window, the white snow continued to fall, its sound soft like tiny stars gently touching the ground. Marie carefully placed the Nutcracker beside her bed. Its eyes seemed almost alive as they looked back at her. "Nutcracker, you must be in so much pain." "I promise I'll fix you," Marie whispered with concern. She took out some bandages from her desk drawer and gently wrapped them around the Nutcracker's jaw again. The bandage was soft and light, and Marie's hands moved delicately, hoping the Nutcracker's wounds would heal quickly. "You'll feel better soon. I'll take care of you," Marie said with a warm smile. Marie placed the Nutcracker back on the small table beside her bed and lay down. The warm blanket made the room feel cozy, and she clutched it tightly, closing her eyes. Outside, the snow continued to fall, bringing a sense of peace. As she thought about the Nutcracker, she wished for its speedy recovery. As the night grew deeper, the house became even quieter. Marie lay in bed with her eyes closed, her mind filled with thoughts of the Nutcracker. She felt a strong sense of love and protection towards it and continued to think of ways to heal it. Each moment with the Nutcracker felt precious to her. Marie carefully took out the bandages and gently wrapped them around the Nutcracker's jaw. "You'll feel better soon," she said, giving the Nutcracker a warm smile. She meticulously handled the Nutcracker's jaw, wrapping the bandage bit by bit. As she worked, Marie examined each tiny scratch on the Nutcracker. After she finished bandaging, Marie softly stroked the Nutcracker's face. "You'll be okay now, Nutcracker. I'll always take care of you." Her touch was warm and tender. The Nutcracker sat quietly, as if understanding her words. Marie gazed into the Nutcracker's eyes, fervently hoping it would get better soon. At that moment, her brother entered the room. "What pain? It's just an ugly wooden doll," he grumbled, his voice cold and indifferent. Marie's anger flared up again. "No, you're the ugly one. I hate you," she shouted loudly. Her voice filled the room, making her brother pause for a moment. Her brother smirked and left the room. Marie hugged the Nutcracker tightly once more. "You're not ugly at all. We can sleep together, right?" she whispered to the Nutcracker as she carefully placed it on the small table beside her bed. Marie pulled the blanket over herself and lay down, gazing at the Nutcracker until she fell asleep. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, and the room remained warm and peaceful. The next morning, Marie and her brother faced each other again. The bright morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, creating a warm atmosphere. Their mother was preparing breakfast, and the table was set with warm bread, fresh fruit, and fragrant cocoa. Marie sat at the table, clutching her Nutcracker, while her brother sat opposite her. Her brother continued to tease her about the Nutcracker. "Marie, are you still trying to fix that ugly doll?" he sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Marie, anger bubbling up inside her, retorted, "Your toy soldier is the ugly one, just like you." Although she snapped back at him, she was still worried about her Nutcracker. Her brother laughed dismissively. "The toy soldier? It's very sturdy. It won't break easily like your Nutcracker." His words hurt Marie even more. She hugged the Nutcracker tighter. "The Nutcracker isn't just a doll. It has magic inside it," she insisted, her voice filled with conviction. Her brother sighed and replied, "Marie, it's just a piece of wood. You need to face reality." His words made Marie even angrier. "No, brother. The Nutcracker is special. You wouldn't understand," she said firmly. Her brother shrugged. "Think whatever you want if it makes you happy," he said nonchalantly, picking up a piece of bread. Marie, too angry to continue the conversation, left the table and returned to her room. The room still held the atmosphere of the previous day. She carefully placed the Nutcracker on her bed and inspected its condition again. The bandage was securely wrapped, but she still worried about the Nutcracker. She whispered to the Nutcracker, "Nutcracker, are you in pain? I'll fix you, I promise. Just hold on a little longer." She softly caressed the Nutcracker's face as she spoke. The Nutcracker's eyes seemed to glisten, as if understanding her words. Marie continued to think of ways to heal her beloved Nutcracker. As the night grew deeper, Marie's room became even quieter. The moonlight streamed softly through the window, casting a gentle glow in the room. Marie lay in bed, clutching the Nutcracker tightly. Her mind was filled with worry for the Nutcracker's condition. She sighed deeply as she gazed at its gentle face. "Nutcracker, I'll take care of you. I'll never leave you alone," she whispered softly. She carefully touched the bandaged jaw, checking to see if it was securely wrapped. She examined the bandage closely to ensure it was properly applied. "You'll be okay now. Just hold on a little longer," she said, giving the Nutcracker a warm smile. Her touch was gentle and kind. The Nutcracker's eyes still shone brightly, looking at her. Marie placed the Nutcracker gently on the small table beside her bed. "You'll be able to sleep here, right?" she whispered to the Nutcracker as she pulled the blanket up to her chin, wrapping herself warmly. The room remained cozy, and outside, the snow continued to fall gently. The sound of the snow brought Marie comfort. As Marie lay in bed, she thought about the day she had spent with the Nutcracker. She recalled the joy and excitement she felt when she first received it, and once again, she relived that moment. She whispered to the Nutcracker, "Today was wonderful with you. Tomorrow will be an even better day." Her voice was soft and warm. Marie closed her eyes and imagined the adventures she would have with the Nutcracker. In her dreams, they traveled to the land of sweets, dancing and singing with the prince. In the dream, she smiled happily. Her face radiated with joy, and her heart felt at peace. Marie felt a deep sense of love and protection towards the Nutcracker, cherishing every moment they had together. As night deepened, Marie's room was filled with tranquility. Outside the window, snow continued to fall. It sounded like gentle bells softly ringing. The room was cozy thanks to the warm fireplace, and under the covers, Marie held the Nutcracker close to her chest. Her mind was still full of worry about the Nutcracker's condition. She gently stroked its face and let out a small sigh. Looking at the Nutcracker, Marie whispered, "Nutcracker, I promise I'll fix you. I'll never leave you alone." She made a heartfelt promise to the Nutcracker. Checking the bandage again, she made sure it was securely wrapped. Once she confirmed everything was in place, she carefully hugged the Nutcracker again. She pulled the blanket up to her chin, wrapping herself warmly. The room remained cozy, and the gentle heat from the fireplace enveloped her. Outside, the snow fell softly, bringing a sense of peace to Marie. Holding the Nutcracker close, she slowly closed her eyes. In her dreams, Marie imagined adventures with the Nutcracker. She dreamt of traveling to the land of sweets, dancing and singing with the prince in a beautiful palace. In her dream, she was laughing happily. A smile spread across her face, and her heart felt at peace. Marie felt a deep sense of love and protection for the Nutcracker, cherishing every moment with it. Falling into a deep sleep, Marie held the Nutcracker tightly. Her heart was no longer anxious, reassured by the presence of the Nutcracker. She recalled happy moments with the Nutcracker and dreamt of future adventures together. Her sleep was deep and peaceful, and the room was filled with a warm glow. Her brother arranged his toy soldiers in the glass cabinet before falling asleep. His room was dark with drawn curtains, but a gentle nightlight softly illuminated the toy soldiers. Each soldier wore a uniform of different colors, intricately embroidered with gold and silver thread. The soldiers stood in formation, their eyes gleaming as if watching over him. The toy soldiers seemed almost alive. Carefully closing the cabinet door, he looked at each soldier and smiled. Seeing them in their places brought him a sense of calm. He lay in bed, waving at the soldiers. "Good night, soldiers. See you tomorrow." In addition to the toy soldiers, his room was filled with various toys. Above the cabinet hung a painting depicting a parade of toy soldiers, and below it was a toy train set. The train, cherished since his childhood, still had wheels that turned smoothly. As he touched the train, he reminisced about his early memories. Lying in bed, he imagined the toy soldiers watching over him. He envisioned them bravely fighting enemies, and felt comforted by the thought of them protecting him in his dreams. As everyone slept, something magical began to happen. The room grew quieter, and somewhere a clock ticked softly. The toy soldiers in the cabinet began to wake up one by one. They blinked at each other, moving cautiously as if waking from a long slumber. In the stillness of the night, the ticking clock filled the room. The toy soldiers in the cabinet started to awaken one by one. Their eyes slowly lit up, and they blinked at each other. Their movements were initially clumsy, but they soon became more natural, as if shaking off the effects of a long sleep. Inside the cabinet, the toy soldiers moved carefully, checking on each other before leaving their positions. Their uniforms still shone, with intricate gold and silver embroidery glinting even in the darkness. Their eyes were full of life, and determination was etched on their faces. The lead soldier at the front carefully opened the cabinet door. His movements were deliberate and precise. As the door opened, the toy soldiers cautiously stepped out, their tiny footsteps barely audible on the floor. The lead soldier signaled to the others, "Prepare yourselves. It's time to move." The toy soldiers lined up in a row, each carrying a finely crafted weapon. They nodded at each other, offering encouragement, and began to follow the lead soldier. Their steps were small and quiet, but their hearts were filled with determination. They started to explore the room, passing by the brothers' desk, chair, toy train, and various other toys. Their eyes were a mix of curiosity and vigilance. Moving steadily, they seemed to know every corner of the room. The toy soldiers approached the brother's bed. He was still deep in sleep, and the soldiers stopped near him. The lead soldier gazed at the brother's face and whispered softly, "We will protect you, in your dreams and in reality." His voice was low, but filled with strong resolve. Even in her dreams, Marie held the Nutcracker tightly. Her dream led her into a world filled with magic and fantasy, a stark contrast to reality. Marie found herself surrounded by a warm, gentle light that felt protective and comforting. She walked through this light, clutching the Nutcracker closely. In her dream, a mystical path lay before Marie. On either side of the path were giant candy trees and flowing chocolate rivers. The candy trees were adorned with colorful candies, and the chocolate river emitted a sweet fragrance as it flowed lazily. Marie gazed in awe at the sight and looked at the Nutcracker. "Nutcracker, this place is amazing," she exclaimed joyfully. The Nutcracker, holding Marie's hand, walked alongside her. His eyes remained warm and full of trust. As they strolled down the dream path, Marie took in the beautiful scenery around her. She picked candies from the trees and tasted them, and dipped her hand into the chocolate river. Everything felt surreal and magical. Marie and the Nutcracker ventured deeper into this enchanted land. They were heading toward a giant candy castle. The castle looked like something out of a fairy tale, incredibly beautiful. The walls were made of cookies, the windows were decorated with candy, and the doors were made of chocolate with cream decorations. When Marie and the Nutcracker reached the castle gate, it slowly opened. They stepped inside and were once again amazed by the sight before them. The inside of the castle was even more dazzling and beautiful. The floor was covered in marshmallows, the walls were adorned with colorful jelly, and the ceiling sparkled with chocolate pieces. Marie and the Nutcracker explored the castle, enjoying their time together. They greeted the inhabitants of the Candy Kingdom, who welcomed Marie warmly and offered her various sweets as gifts. Marie danced and sang with the Nutcracker, savoring every moment in her dream. Her face was filled with a happy smile. This night promised a special adventure for Marie and the Nutcracker. The dream left an unforgettable impression on her. She gained the courage to face any challenge with the Nutcracker by her side. The adventure of Marie and the Nutcracker had just begun. As night deepened, Marie's house was quiet. The warm heat from the fireplace enveloped the room, and the moonlight softly streamed through the window. Everything was peaceful and still. Marie, holding the Nutcracker tightly, was deep in sleep. Suddenly, a loud squeaking sound broke the silence. Marie woke up and listened intently. The sound grew louder, and she was filled with unease. The room was dark, and a foreboding atmosphere began to settle in. Marie, pulling the blanket over herself, slowly turned towards the noise. At that moment, countless mice poured into Marie's room. They moved quickly, scurrying around the room. Their tiny feet scratched the floor, making even more noise. Marie sat up in shock. "What is this?" she muttered in confusion. The mice surrounded her bed, moving menacingly. Leading them was the largest mouse, the Mouse King, who approached Marie. Unlike the other mice, he had a large, muscular body, and his eyes glowed red. The Mouse King bared his sharp teeth and growled. Marie, trembling with fear, retreated onto her bed. "Help! Someone help!" Marie screamed. The mice growled menacingly as they encircled her. The Mouse King approached Marie, speaking in a sharp voice. "Now I will eat you." His words filled Marie with even more fear. She backed away on the bed, assuming a defensive posture. The mice followed her movements, drawing closer and closer. Marie looked around the room for an escape. However, the mice blocked all exits. Despair filled her heart as she clutched the Nutcracker. Then, she held the Nutcracker tightly and closed her eyes. "Nutcracker, help me." Her voice was filled with desperation and fear. As Marie lay on the floor trembling with fear, the Mouse King drew closer. His eyes glowed red, and he bared his sharp teeth menacingly. The Mouse King was larger than the other mice, and his muscular body exuded terrifying strength. His long tail whipped the floor, making a sharp cracking sound. "Now I will eat you," the Mouse King shouted in a low, terrifying voice. His voice was cold and merciless. Marie, shaking with fear, backed away. She was paralyzed with fear, unable to move. The Mouse King drew even closer, his breath brushing against Marie's face. "You are mine now." His words filled Marie with despair. Marie pressed herself against the edge of the bed, holding the Nutcracker tightly. She tried to draw strength from the Nutcracker's warmth to overcome her fear. Only one thought filled her mind. "Nutcracker, please help me." Tears welled up in her eyes as fear and despair overwhelmed her. The Mouse King, baring his sharp teeth, paused in front of Marie's face, his red eyes gleaming with a cruel smile. "You are now our prey." His voice was colder and more terrifying. Marie, trembling with fear, closed her eyes. In her despair, she held the Nutcracker tightly. At that moment, the Nutcracker in Marie's arms began to glow warmly. Marie, surprised, opened her eyes and looked at the Nutcracker. Its eyes sparkled as if it had come to life. The Nutcracker's mouth slowly opened, and a powerful voice resonated from within. "Don't touch Marie," the Nutcracker shouted at the Mouse King. Marie stumbled back in shock. The room was still dark, and the Mouse King's sharp gaze grew more menacing as he approached. The tiny, sharp claws of the mice scuttled around, filling Marie's ears and heightening her fear. She clutched the Nutcracker tighter. Marie's heart pounded with fear and anxiety. "You are now our prey," the Mouse King shouted coldly. His voice pierced deep into Marie's heart, filling her with despair. Marie was cornered at the edge of her bed, and the mice closed in on her every move. Her hands trembled, and tears of terror welled up in her eyes. The Mouse King stopped in front of Marie's face, laughing cruelly as he spoke. "There's no escape for you now." His words plunged Marie further into despair. She held the Nutcracker tightly and closed her eyes. Only one hope filled her mind. "Nutcracker, please help me." Suddenly, the Nutcracker in Marie's arms began to glow warmly. Marie opened her eyes in surprise and looked at the Nutcracker. Its eyes sparkled as if they had come to life. The Nutcracker's entire body was enveloped in a warm light, and its small hands began to move gently. Marie stared in disbelief. "Don't touch Marie," the Nutcracker shouted at the Mouse King. His voice, though small, was powerful and echoed through the room. The Mouse King stepped back in shock, fear filling his eyes. "What's happening? "How can you move?" the Mouse King asked, his voice filled with confusion. The Nutcracker slowly rose from Marie's arms, standing protectively in front of her and facing the Mouse King and his mice. His eyes shone with determination, and a silver sword appeared in his small hands. "Stay away from Marie. I will fight you," the Nutcracker declared firmly. The Mouse King hesitated for a moment, but soon prepared to attack again. "Really? Do you think you can take on all of us by yourself?" he sneered, signaling to the mice. They lunged at Marie once more, but the Nutcracker bravely blocked them. The horde of mice charged at Marie's room, throwing it into chaos. Following the Mouse King's signal, the mice bared their sharp claws and teeth, rushing at Marie and the Nutcracker. They moved quickly and agilely, turning the room into a frenzy. Their small bodies and rapid movements filled Marie with intense fear. Marie watched the Nutcracker trying to protect her, rekindling her hope. The Nutcracker, with a determined expression, raised his silver sword and charged at the swarm of mice. "Don't touch Marie!" His voice echoed through the room. The first mouse leaped at the Nutcracker, who swiftly swung his sword, blocking the attack. The next mouse lunged, but the Nutcracker skillfully dodged. His movements were incredibly nimble and precise. The energy radiating from his small body was as powerful as that of a real warrior. However, the number of mice was overwhelming. They attacked from all sides, and the Nutcracker struggled to fend them off alone. Marie, witnessing this, knew she couldn't remain paralyzed by fear. Summoning her courage, she grabbed a pillow from her bed. "Nutcracker, I'll help you," she shouted confidently. Marie swung the pillow at the mice, trying to fend them off. Her movements were clumsy, but her desire to help the Nutcracker was sincere. She distracted the mice by swinging the pillow, allowing the Nutcracker to defeat them one by one. The cooperation between Marie and the Nutcracker yielded astonishing results. The Mouse King, seeing this, grew furious. "How dare this little girl thwart my army?" he yelled angrily. The Mouse King decided to confront the Nutcracker directly. His large body and sharp teeth were intimidating. He charged at the Nutcracker, slashing with his claws aimed at the Nutcracker's sword. The Nutcracker barely blocked the Mouse King's attack, stepping back from the force. Despite his small size, he refused to give up. "Stay away from Marie. I will never retreat," the Nutcracker shouted with determination. His eyes gleamed with resolve. The battle between the Mouse King and the Nutcracker was intense. The two clashed continuously, launching relentless attacks at each other as they moved around the room. Marie watched the fight, filled with fear and tension, yet she cheered for the Nutcracker. "Nutcracker, you can do it. I believe in you." Her voice gave the Nutcracker great strength. at that moment, an astonishing event occurred. The Nutcracker suddenly began to move. A brilliant light emanated from his body, illuminating the entire room. Marie's fear momentarily dissipated as she gazed at the light in awe. The Nutcracker's eyes sparkled as if they were alive, and his body was filled with the energy of a warrior. The Nutcracker stood resolutely facing the Mouse King. In his hand, a silver sword gleamed, and the energy radiating from his small body filled the room. "Don't touch Marie," the Nutcracker shouted in a powerful voice. His words echoed throughout the room, startling the mice and the Mouse King. The Mouse King hesitated upon seeing the Nutcracker's transformation. "What is this? How can you move?" the Mouse King asked in a bewildered voice. But the Nutcracker did not respond. Instead, he swung his sword at the Mouse King with a determined expression. His movements were astonishingly swift and precise. The Nutcracker charged at the horde of mice bravely. His silver sword glittered as it struck down the mice one by one. The mice, taken aback by the Nutcracker's fierce attack, began to flee. "Don't touch Marie," the Nutcracker's voice was strong and resolute. His small body felt as powerful as a giant warrior. Marie let out a sigh of relief as she watched. She believed that the Nutcracker would protect her. "Nutcracker, you're amazing!" Marie exclaimed in a voice filled with joy. Tears of gratitude welled up in her eyes. The Nutcracker, encouraged by Marie's cheers, fought even more valiantly. The Mouse King, furious, launched another attack on the Nutcracker. His sharp claws swiped at the Nutcracker, but the Nutcracker quickly dodged the attack. "You can't defeat us," the Mouse King yelled in a voice filled with rage. But the Nutcracker did not retreat. He raised his silver sword high and charged at the Mouse King once again. The Nutcracker's attacks grew stronger and stronger. His sword pierced through the Mouse King's defenses, wounding him. The Mouse King let out a scream of pain, but the Nutcracker did not stop. He was determined to fight to the end to protect Marie. His eyes were filled with unwavering determination. With a determined expression, the Nutcracker drew his sword and charged at the horde of mice. His small body moved with unbelievable speed and power. "Come on, mice. I will protect Miss Marie." His voice echoed through the room, causing the mice to hesitate for a moment. The Nutcracker's silver sword gleamed, and in his hand it moved as if it were alive. When the first mouse lunged at him, the Nutcracker swung his sword, blocking the attack. His sword was precise and powerful, repelling the mouse, which retreated with a shriek. However, the mice were numerous. They swarmed from all directions, converging on the Nutcracker. He moved nimbly, dodging their attacks and countering with swift strikes. His sword flashed as he defeated the mice one by one. The Nutcracker's movements were as graceful as they were powerful, and the energy radiating from his small body was astonishingly strong. At that moment, the toy soldiers in the glass cabinet began to wake up one by one. "Quick, join the fight!" the toy soldiers shouted. They opened the cabinet door, marched out, and joined the Nutcracker in battling the horde of mice. The toy soldiers, armed with small weapons, charged at the mice. Their courage and determination provided great strength to the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker and the toy soldiers fought together against the horde of mice. Their teamwork produced remarkable results. The toy soldiers blocked the mice's attacks, allowing the Nutcracker to defeat them. They fought with trust and reliance on each other, and their teamwork grew stronger. The mice attacked with their sharp teeth and claws, but the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers stood their ground. Their determination and courage instilled fear in the mice. The battle raged fiercely, and despite her fear, Marie cheered for the Nutcracker. "Nutcracker, you can do it!" she shouted in a strong voice. Encouraged by Marie's support, the Nutcracker fought with even greater strength. His sword flashed as he defeated the mice one by one, while the toy soldiers followed his lead, fending off the mice. Their cooperation became increasingly perfect, and the mice were gradually pushed back. The Nutcracker and the toy soldiers fought bravely against the horde of mice, determined to protect Marie until the end. The toy soldiers fought bravely against the horde of mice. Awakened from the display cabinet, each toy soldier wielded different weapons, moving swiftly and precisely. The toy soldiers gathered around the Nutcracker, forming a protective circle to fend off the mice's relentless attacks. Determination shone in their eyes, and a strong warrior spirit emanated from their small bodies. "Everyone, unite!" shouted the lead toy soldier. His voice echoed through the small room, filling the toy soldiers with courage. They pressed their shoulders together and pulled their strength to repel the mice. Their weapons gleamed as they struck the mice, and the toy soldiers' unwavering solidarity struck fear into the hearts of the rodents. The toy soldiers brandished various weapons. Some held small spears, others carried shields, and still others wielded bows, shooting arrows at the mice. Their attacks were precise and deadly, pushing the mice back gradually through their cooperation and bravery. The Nutcracker drew strength from the courage of the toy soldiers. He swung his silver sword, cutting down the mice, and continued to fight alongside the toy soldiers. His movements were agile and powerful, his eyes filled with a strong resolve. "Let's fight to the end to protect Marie," the Nutcracker shouted. Inspired by the Nutcracker's call, the toy soldiers fought with renewed vigor. They charged bravely at the mice without a hint of retreat. Their small bodies felt as strong as a giant army, their cooperation flawless. The toy soldiers trusted and relied on each other, systematically defeating the mice. The battle raged on fiercely. The mice attacked with sharp teeth and claws, but the toy soldiers never backed down. They blocked the mice's assaults with their shields and counterattacked with spears and swords. Their unified strength overwhelmed the mice. Marie, despite her fear, cheered for the toy soldiers. "Nutcracker, toy soldiers, you can do it." Her voice rang through the room, and her encouragement gave the toy soldiers even more courage. They fought with all their might, determined to protect Marie to the very end. The mice bared their sharp teeth and claws, launching indiscriminate attacks. Their numbers were overwhelming, and their movements were swift and nimble. The tiny mice quickly surrounded Marie, the Nutcracker, and the toy soldiers. Their eyes gleamed with greed, and their attacks were ferocious. But the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers stood their ground. With determined expressions, they blocked the mice's attacks and fought fiercely. The Nutcracker's silver sword flashed as he cut down the mice one by one. His movements were agile and powerful. The toy soldiers used their weapons to fend off the mice. Some used shields to block the attacks, others pierced the mice with spears, and archers shot arrows at the distant mice. The battle continued with unrelenting intensity. The mice kept attacking, but the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers never gave up. They protected each other and fought in unison. The Nutcracker led the charge against the mice, with the toy soldiers following and defeating the rodents. Their combined strength overwhelmed the mice. Marie, amidst her fear, cheered for the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers. "Nutcracker, toy soldiers, you can do it. Never give up." Her voice echoed in the room, and her encouragement gave the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers a tremendous boost. They fought with renewed determination. The mice's attacks grew fiercer, but the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers counterattacked even more strongly. They blocked the mice's attacks and defeated more and more of them. The battle continued incessantly, and the room was chaotic with the struggle between the mice and the toys. But the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers never gave up. Their eyes were filled with strong resolve and courage. As more mice fell, the remaining ones began to panic. The Nutcracker and the toy soldiers' powerful counterattacks gradually pushed the mice back. The mice's attacks weakened, and more of them started to flee. The battle was nearing its end. The Nutcracker charged bravely at the last remaining mice. His silver sword gleamed as he defeated the final mouse. The toy soldiers followed him, finishing off the remaining rodents. Marie sighed in relief as she watched. She realized that the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers had won. The battle was over, and the mice had all retreated. The Nutcracker and the toy soldiers had finished their battle against the mice. The aftermath left the room in disarray, with mouse remnants scattered everywhere. The Nutcracker lowered his silver sword to the floor and took a deep breath. Though his body was worn from the battle, his eyes still held strong resolve. Marie, from her bed, looked at the Nutcracker and sighed in relief. Her heart was still filled with fear and tension, but thanks to the Nutcracker's bravery and the toy soldier's cooperation, they had overcome the great crisis. She approached the Nutcracker and said, "Thank you so much, Nutcracker. We are safe because of you." The Nutcracker smiled warmly at Marie. "Miss Marie, it's not over yet. The Mouse King is still out there." His voice was still cautious. The toy soldiers, hearing his words, also steeled their resolve. "That's right, Nutcracker. We must protect Miss Marie until the end." At that moment, the sharp voice of the Mouse King echoed from the darkness again. "Do you think you can defeat me? The real battle starts now." The Mouse King reappeared from the remnants of the mice. His eyes gleamed even more red, and his body looked sharper from the battle's wounds. He glared at the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers with a furious look. "I will end you all now." The Nutcracker and the toy soldiers braced themselves for battle once more. They pressed their shoulders together and faced the Mouse King bravely. "We will never back down," the Nutcracker shouted resolutely. His eyes were filled with strong determination and courage. The toy soldiers responded to his call. "We will fight to protect Miss Marie until the end." Marie, despite her fear, cheered for the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers. Her voice trembled, but she did not lose her courage. "Nutcracker, toy soldiers, you can do it. Never give up." Her encouragement gave the Nutcracker and the toy soldiers great strength. They prepared to fight with renewed courage. After all the toy soldiers had fallen, the Nutcracker stood alone, bravely. His body was covered with the marks of battle, but his eyes still held strong determination. The Nutcracker gripped his silver sword in one hand and clenched his other hand into a fist to protect Marie. The horde of mice surrounded him more aggressively. Their eyes gleamed red, and their sharp teeth sparkled, exuding a menacing aura. "Now it's your turn, Nutcracker," the mice screeched with malicious laughter. Their voices filled the room, creating an atmosphere of fear. The Nutcracker never backed down. He held his silver sword high and faced the horde of mice bravely. Though his small body was relatively small compared to the number of mice, his courage and determination were mightier than anything. "Don't touch Marie," the Nutcracker shouted in a powerful voice. His voice filled the room, momentarily stopping the mice in their tracks. But the mice were relentless. They charged at the Nutcracker once more. The first mouse leaped at the Nutcracker, who quickly dodged the attack and struck with his silver sword. "You will never harm Marie," the Nutcracker declared firmly. The mice relentlessly attacked the Nutcracker. Their sharp teeth and claws flew at the Nutcracker, but he dodged all their attacks with incredible agility and countered them. His silver sword gleamed as he struck down the mice one by one. His movements were graceful and powerful, like a dance. The mice, shocked by the Nutcracker's powerful counterattacks, began to retreat. However, the number of mice was still overwhelming. They continually surrounded and attacked the Nutcracker. As he grew increasingly tired, he refused to give up. His eyes still held strong determination. "I will fight to the end to protect Marie," the Nutcracker shouted. Seeing this, Marie gathered her courage and shouted, "Nutcracker, you can do it. I believe in you." Her voice echoed through the room. Marie's encouragement gave the Nutcracker great strength. He charged at the mice once more with renewed courage. His silver sword shone even more brilliantly as he defeated the mice. As more of their comrades fell, the mice were gripped by fear. They were pushed back by the Nutcracker's powerful counterattacks. Their attacks weakened, and more of them started to flee. The Nutcracker bravely charged at the last remaining mice. His silver sword gleamed as he struck down the final mouse. Marie watched the entire situation unfold in fear. However, she couldn't abandon the Nutcracker. Amid the noise of the battle and the mice's incessant growling, courage welled up from deep within her heart. "No! Leave my Nutcracker alone!" Marie shouted with all her might. Her voice filled the room, drawing everyone's attention. Hearing Marie's voice, the Nutcracker gained even more strength. His silver sword sparkled once again, and he bravely charged at the mice. His movements became more powerful, and the mice were increasingly pushed back by his formidable counterattacks. Marie seized this moment and got up from the bed, grabbing a small chair. "Stop it! Stop tormenting my friend!" Marie raised the chair high and approached the Mouse King. The Mouse King looked at her with startled eyes for a moment. Fear briefly flickered in his eyes, but soon he sneered cruelly. "You think you can stop me?" the Mouse King scoffed. But Marie stood her ground. She did not lose the courage she had summoned to protect the Nutcracker. "You will never defeat us," Marie declared firmly. Her eyes were filled with strong determination. The Mouse King tried to attack again, but Marie swung the chair with all her might, striking the Mouse King's body. The Mouse King staggered back, letting out a loud cry. His body shook violently from the impact, and he screamed in pain. "You little brat," the Mouse King shouted in anger, but he was already severely wounded. The Nutcracker took advantage of this moment, his eyes filled with determination, and charged at the Mouse King. "This is the end." The Nutcracker raised his silver sword high and rushed at the Mouse King. His movements were swift and powerful. The Mouse King tried to block him, but he was already exhausted, and his movements were slow. The Nutcracker's silver sword gleamed as it pierced the Mouse King's body. With one final scream of pain, the Mouse King collapsed to the ground. His red eyes gradually dimmed, and his body stopped moving. The mice, seeing their leader defeated, fell into chaos. They began to flee in fear, their squeaking filling the room as they disappeared one by one. Marie, seeing that the Nutcracker had won, shouted with joy, "Nutcracker, we did it!" She hugged the Nutcracker, tears streaming down her face. Her heart was filled with joy and relief. The Nutcracker looked at Marie with a warm smile. "Miss Marie, it was your courage that allowed us to win." His voice was kind and warm. The battle with the Mouse King became even more intense. The Mouse King, realizing that his army had retreated and he was left alone, approached Marie and the Nutcracker with his sharp teeth bared, eyes blazing with fury. "Daring to wound me is unforgivable." His voice was cold and terrifying. The Nutcracker stood resolutely, holding his silver sword high against the Mouse King. "Don't touch Miss Marie. I will never back down from this fight with you." The Nutcracker's voice was strong, and his eyes were filled with unwavering determination. Marie picked up a pillow and threw it forcefully at the Mouse King. With a thud, the pillow struck the Mouse King's face. He staggered momentarily, but quickly regained his stance. "I'll finish you both off," the Mouse King roared as he charged at the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker swiftly dodged the Mouse King's attack, swinging his silver sword. The blade flashed as it grazed the Mouse King's body, causing him to scream in pain. But the Mouse King did not back down easily. He attempted another attack, charging at the Nutcracker. Marie seized the moment. She grabbed another small toy from the room and hurled it at the Mouse King. The toy struck the Mouse King's leg, hindering his movement. "Do you think you can defeat me like this?" the Mouse King shouted in a voice filled with rage. Ignoring the Mouse King's anger, the Nutcracker targeted his weak points. He moved swiftly and precisely, breaking through the Mouse King's defenses and continuing his assault. His silver sword flashed as it cut the Mouse King's body multiple times. The Mouse King grew more and more wounded and tired. Marie cheered for the Nutcracker despite her fear. "Nutcracker, you can do it. I believe in you." Her voice echoed through the room. Marie's encouragement gave the Nutcracker great strength. He fought even more fiercely, and the Mouse King was increasingly pushed back. The Nutcracker, summoning all his remaining strength, charged at the Mouse King one last time. His silver sword gleamed as it aimed at the Mouse King's heart. With a final scream of pain, the Mouse King staggered back. His red eyes gradually dimmed, and his body fell to the floor, lifeless. The Mouse King no longer moved. His final breath echoed through the room, and the battle was finally over. The Nutcracker lowered his silver sword and took a deep breath. His body was exhausted from the battle, but his eyes shone with victory. Marie, seeing this, shouted joyfully, "Nutcracker, we did it!" She hugged the Nutcracker, tears streaming down her face. Her heart was filled with joy and relief. After the battle ended, the Nutcracker stood resolutely to protect Marie. His body was covered in wounds, but his eyes still shone with determination. He looked at the fallen body of the Mouse King and sighed. "It's safe now, Miss Marie," he said warmly. Marie breathed a sigh of relief at the Nutcracker's words. She approached him and grasped his hand tightly. "Thank you so much, Nutcracker. Thanks to you, we're safe." Tears of gratitude and emotion welled up in her eyes. The Nutcracker gently squeezed her hand and smiled. But at that moment, the Mouse King, using his last bit of strength, stood up again. His eyes still glowed red, and his body trembled from his injuries. "It's not over yet," he shouted angrily. He launched one final attack towards the Nutcracker and Marie. The Nutcracker pushed Marie behind him and raised his silver sword once more. "You will never win," he declared firmly. His voice was powerful, and his eyes were filled with unwavering resolve. He stood ready to block the Mouse King's attack. The Mouse King charged at the Nutcracker, his sharp teeth and claws gleaming. But the Nutcracker did not back down. He swung his silver sword, deflecting the Mouse King's attack. Their fight resumed with renewed intensity. The Nutcracker dodged the Mouse King's attacks, retaliating quickly and accurately. His silver sword flashed as it cut the Mouse King's body multiple times. The Mouse King screamed in pain, but the Nutcracker did not stop. He was determined to fight until the end to protect Marie. The Mouse King grew more wounded and tired with each strike. His movements slowed, and his attacks weakened. The Nutcracker seized the opportunity. Summoning all his remaining strength, he charged at the Mouse King. His silver sword gleamed as it aimed for the Mouse King's heart. With a final scream of agony, the Mouse King fell to the ground. His red eyes gradually dimmed, and his body ceased to move. The Mouse King was finally defeated. The Nutcracker lowered his silver sword and took a deep breath. Though exhausted from the battle, his eyes were filled with the light of victory. Marie, seeing this, shouted joyfully, "Nutcracker, we did it!" She hugged the Nutcracker and cried tears of joy and relief. Her heart was filled with happiness and gratitude. The Nutcracker looked at Marie with a warm smile. "Miss Marie, we won because of your courage," he said kindly. Seeing the Mouse King's defeat, the remaining mice fled in terror. They had lost their will to fight. The mice scattered in all directions, and the room grew quiet once more. The sound of their scurrying faded into the distance, and they vanished like shadows. Only the aftermath of the battle remained in the room. Marie sighed with relief and hugged the Nutcracker tightly. Her heart was filled with joy and relief. "Nutcracker, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, we would have been in big trouble," Marie said, tears streaming down her face. Her eyes were filled with gratitude and emotion. The Nutcracker looked at her with a warm smile. "Miss Marie, we won because of your courage," he said gently. The Nutcracker confirmed that all the mice had retreated and, feeling the exhaustion of the battle, knelt on one knee. His small body was covered in wounds, and blood oozed from various places. Marie looked at his injuries with a worried expression. "Nutcracker, you're hurt so badly. What should we do?" she asked, carefully touching his wounds, tears in her eyes. The Nutcracker felt her gentle touch and smiled softly. "It's all right, Miss Marie. These wounds are all for protecting you," he said warmly, his eyes filled with determination. Marie was deeply moved by his courage and dedication. "Thank you so much, Nutcracker. You're my true hero," she said, holding his hand tightly. The room became quiet again, and Marie and the Nutcracker sat together on the bed. Marie found a small bandage and carefully wrapped it around his wounds. "This will make you feel a bit better. I'll always protect you," she whispered gently. The Nutcracker smiled as he felt her touch. "Miss Marie, your care gives me great strength," he said. Marie hugged the Nutcracker, feeling his warmth. She fervently wished for his wounds to heal quickly. "We'll always be together, Nutcracker. Thank you for being by my side," she said, holding his hand tightly. The Nutcracker nodded at her words. "I will always protect you, Miss Marie," he replied. Marie and the Nutcracker celebrated their victory, sharing their joy. The room was now filled with peace. Moonlight streamed through the window, softly illuminating the room and wrapping Marie and the Nutcracker in a warm embrace. Marie held the Nutcracker tightly, feeling deep emotion and joy. "Nutcracker, we won. I can't believe it," Marie said in a voice full of happiness. Her face was radiant with a bright smile. The Nutcracker nodded at her words. "Miss Marie, we succeeded because of your courage," he said warmly. Marie took the Nutcracker's hand and began to dance a little. Her movements were light and free, and the Nutcracker joined her. Their dance filled the room like magic. Marie laughed and said, "Everything will be fine now. We can overcome anything together." The Nutcracker held Marie's hand tightly. "Miss Marie, you are truly brave and special. I am happy to be with you," he said, his eyes filled with sincere gratitude and affection. Marie shed tears at his words. "Nutcracker, you are my precious friend. Thank you so much for being by my side, she replied. They danced around the room, their laughter echoing through the space. They forgot the fatigue of the battle, and in their joy and happiness, they protected each other. Marie hoped this moment with the Nutcracker would last forever. Just then, the door to Marie's room opened slightly, and her brother entered. He looked at the scene in the room with surprise. "Marie, what happened here?" he asked, astonished. Marie hugged the Nutcracker and laughed. "Brother, we fought the mice and won. The Nutcracker and the toy soldiers protected me." Her brother listened in disbelief, looking around the room at the remnants of the mice. "Really, Marie? Did you really go through all this?" he asked, his eyes filled with doubt. But Marie nodded and said, "Yes, brother. The Nutcracker protected me. He is a true hero." Her brother pondered her words for a moment, then looked at the Nutcracker. "Marie, if what you say is true, then the Nutcracker is an amazing friend," he said with a smile. "I'm glad you're safe, Marie. We should thank the Nutcracker too." Marie and her brother celebrated their victory with the Nutcracker, sharing their joy. Their hearts were united, and they promised to always protect each other. Marie hugged the Nutcracker once more and said, "Nutcracker, you are my true friend. Together, we can overcome any challenge." After the battle, Marie looked at the Nutcracker's injuries with a worried expression. The traces of the battle were still vivid in the room, and the Nutcracker's body was covered in wounds. His silver armor was dented and scratched from the mice's attacks. His face had small cracks, and his arms and legs bore deep wounds. "Nutcracker, doesn't it hurt a lot?" Marie asked, her eyes welling with tears as she examined his injuries. Her touch was careful and gentle, but her heart ached with every wound she saw. "How can I heal your wounds?" she whispered worriedly. The Nutcracker sensed Marie's concern and smiled softly. "It's all right, Miss Marie. These wounds are all for protecting you," he said warmly, his eyes filled with gratitude and affection. Marie nodded at his words, but her heart still ached at the sight of his injuries. Marie brought over a small first aid kit from the corner of the room. Inside were bandages, antiseptic, and a small brush. She took out the bandages to treat the Nutcracker's wounds. "This will help you feel a bit better. I'll always protect you," she whispered gently, wrapping his injuries. Marie's touch was soft and meticulous. She carefully bandaged each of the Nutcracker's wounds. Though tears still welled in her eyes, she treated his injuries with a strong will. "Nutcracker, since you protected me, now it's my turn to protect you," Marie said with determination. The Nutcracker felt her gentle care and smiled. "Miss Marie, your heart gives me great strength," he said kindly. Marie listened to his words, her resolve strengthening as she treated his wounds. She fervently wished for his quick recovery. As time passed, Marie finished treating all of the Nutcracker's injuries. Though his body was now covered in bandages, thanks to her care, he looked much better. Marie gently caressed his face and said, "You seem a little better now. You should rest well." She sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. The Nutcracker held her hand and smiled warmly. "Miss Marie, thank you. Your love and courage have given me great strength," he said, his voice still warm, his eyes filled with deep gratitude. Marie listened to his words and smiled with joy. The next morning, Marie woke up early to check on the Nutcracker's condition. Soft sunlight streamed into the room through the window, washing away the tension and fear of the previous day. She carefully got out of bed and approached the small table where the Nutcracker lay. His body was still wrapped in bandages, but Marie felt a sense of relief seeing the peaceful expression on his face. Marie gently took the Nutcracker's hand and checked his condition. His body was calm and stable. She examined his wounds one by one, making sure the bandages were properly secured. "Nutcracker, you seem a bit better." "I'm so glad," she whispered with a warm smile. The Nutcracker felt Marie's touch and slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were still filled with determination and warm feelings. "Good morning, Miss Marie. Thanks to you, I could rest well," he said softly. Marie beamed with joy at his words. "I'm so glad, Nutcracker. I was hoping you would recover quickly." Marie brought him a warm cup of tea and sat by his side. "You still need to rest more. It will take time for your wounds to heal completely," she said gently. The Nutcracker nodded and sipped the tea. His eyes reflected his deep gratitude towards Marie. "Miss Marie, your love and care will help me recover quickly." Marie held his hand tightly. "You protected me, so now it's my turn to protect you," she said with determination. The Nutcracker gently squeezed her hand and smiled. "Miss Marie, your heart gives me great strength," he said warmly. Days passed, and the Nutcracker's wounds began to heal. Marie diligently tended to his injuries every day. Her touch was gentle and meticulous, and his body grew healthier each day. The Nutcracker felt deeply grateful for her dedicated care. Marie and the Nutcracker spent each morning and evening together. They shared their stories and drew strength from each other. Marie was moved by his courage and dedication, and the Nutcracker was grateful for her love and care. They became indispensable to each other. One morning, the Nutcracker had special news for Marie. "Miss Marie, I believe I am fully recovered now," he said, his voice filled with joy and pride. Marie smiled brightly at his words. "Really, Nutcracker? I'm so glad you're fully recovered. The Nutcracker held Marie's hand and said, "But this is just the beginning. Miss Marie, I am now going to transform to protect you even better." His eyes were filled with determination. Marie looked at him in surprise and asked, "Transform? What do you mean, Nutcracker?" The Nutcracker held Marie's hand tightly. "I am not just an ordinary Nutcracker. Thanks to your love and courage, I can transform into a more powerful being. I will become a true warrior to protect you," he said seriously. Marie was moved by his words. "That's amazing, Nutcracker. You can transform into a true warrior." At that moment, the Nutcracker's body began to glow brightly. Marie watched in amazement as the light surrounded him. His small body began to shine more intensely, and his form gradually changed. His silver armor became more radiant, and his body grew larger and stronger. Marie watched the transformation with awe and wonder. The Nutcracker was now completely transformed into a new, powerful figure. He stood taller, his armor more magnificent and robust. His face radiated confidence and determination, and his hands held a larger, more formidable sword. He was no longer just a Nutcracker, but a true warrior. "Miss Marie, I can now protect you better," the Nutcracker said. His voice was still kind, but it carried strength and confidence. Marie looked at his new form and spoke with joy and awe. "Nutcracker, you're amazing. Now we can overcome any challenge together." The Nutcracker held Marie's hand firmly. "Miss Marie, it is because of your love and courage that I could make this transformation. I am glad to be able to fight for you," he said, his eyes filled with deep gratitude and affection. Marie shed tears at his words. "Nutcracker, you are my true friend. Together, we can overcome anything." They prepared for new adventures together. The Nutcracker was now a stronger and braver warrior, and Marie vowed to always be by his side. Their friendship and love deepened, and they were ready to face any challenge together. That night, Marie and the Nutcracker received a special visit in their dreams. After the Nutcracker's transformation into a warrior, Marie had fallen into a peaceful sleep beside him. When Marie woke up in her dream, she found herself in a beautiful marble hall of a grand palace. A magnificent chandelier lit up the ceiling, and the walls were adorned with gold decorations and intricate carvings. Marie sensed that this was not just a dream, but a magical place. In the center of the hall stood a throne, and on it sat a young prince who looked remarkably like the Nutcracker. His eyes were warm and smiling, and he gazed at Marie and the Nutcracker with a welcoming expression. The prince rose slowly and approached them. "Welcome, Miss Marie, and my faithful Nutcracker," he said in a gentle, warm voice. Marie bowed slightly at the prince's greeting. "Where is this place? And who are you?" she asked curiously. The prince smiled kindly and replied, "I am the prince of the land of sweets. Your Nutcracker was indeed my loyal warrior. Thanks to your love and courage, he has returned to his true form." The Nutcracker, now transformed into a prince, held Marie's hand and nodded. "Indeed, Miss Marie. Your help allowed me to return here. Your love and dedication saved me," he said, his eyes filled with deep gratitude. Marie was moved by their story. "It's incredible. I can't believe you were a real prince." The prince approached Marie and gently took her hand. "Miss Marie, your courage and love saved the land of sweets. It is because of you that your Nutcracker could transform back into a prince," he said sincerely. Marie listened to their story with tears in her eyes. "I just wanted to help my friend. I can't believe something so amazing happened," she said, her eyes glistening with gratitude and emotion. The prince held her hand tightly and said, "Your pure heart and bravery saved us all. You are now a special guest of the land of sweets and our hero." The prince gestured, and suddenly the hall's doors opened, allowing the residents of the land of sweets to enter. They all entered with joyful expressions, welcoming Marie and the Nutcracker. Among them were candy fairies, chocolate soldiers, and sugar plum fairies. They all expressed their deep gratitude and respect to Marie and the Nutcracker. "Miss Marie, tonight we will hold a celebration in your honor. We will all share in the joy, commemorating your courage and love," the prince said with a bright smile. Marie was deeply moved by their warm welcome, and her heart was filled with joy. The prince shared his past story with Marie. "Long ago, I was a brave warrior who protected the land of sweets, but an evil witch cast a spell on me, turning me into a Nutcracker. Thanks to your love and courage, I was able to return to my human form," he said, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and regret. Marie held the prince's hand tightly as she listened to his story. "It's a relief that the spell was broken. Now you can protect the land of sweets again," she said warmly. The prince gently squeezed her hand and replied, "Yes, Miss Marie. Thanks to your help, I can protect the land of sweets once more. I will never forget this kindness." The prince continued his story, reminiscing about the past. The land of sweets was always a peaceful and beautiful place, but one day an evil witch appeared and cursed me. She transformed me into a Nutcracker to prevent me from protecting the land. Since then, I lived as a wooden figure for a long time. But you came and broke the spell, allowing me to return to my true form. Marie was deeply moved by his story. What an incredible story! "But now that you're back as the prince, everything will be all right," she said, holding his hand tightly. The prince nodded at her kind words. "Yes, Miss Marie. Thanks to your courage and love, everything will be fine. The land of sweets will be peaceful again." The prince handed Marie a small box as a token of gratitude. Inside the box was a beautiful necklace. This necklace is one of the most treasured possessions of the Land of Sweets. Miss Marie, I give it to you in honor of your courage and love. You are the hero of the Land of Sweets and our dear friend. Marie accepted the necklace with tears in her eyes. Thank you so much, Prince. I will cherish this necklace forever. If there's anything I can do to help the Land of Sweets, I will always be there, she said sincerely. The prince smiled warmly at her words. Miss Marie, your heart is a great strength to the Land of Sweets. Thank you. The prince showed Marie the beautiful scenery of the Land of Sweets. They strolled through the gardens filled with candy trees and walked along the chocolate river. The landscape of the Land of Sweets was filled with dreamlike beauty. Marie enjoyed every moment, treasuring the time she spent with the prince. The prince introduced Marie to various places in the Land of Sweets, leading her on a special journey. Miss Marie, let me show you all the beautiful places in the Land of Sweets. His voice was filled with excitement and anticipation. Marie responded with a bright smile, I can't wait, Prince. The first place they visited was a garden filled with candy trees. The garden was surrounded by trees made of all kinds of colorful candies, with sweets falling from the trees like snow and covering the ground. The branches were adorned with colorful gummy bears, and the ground was blanketed with sweet treats. Marie admired the astonishing sight, exclaiming, "This place is enchanting. Everything is so beautiful." The prince picked a candy from one of the trees and handed it to her. All the candies here are edible. Enjoy as much as you like. Marie took a bite of the candy and her eyes sparkled with delight at the sweet taste. It's delicious. This place feels like a dreamland. Next, they headed to the chocolate river. The river flowed with rich, dark chocolate, and small marshmallow boats floated on its surface. Chocolate trees lined the banks, with streams of chocolate flowing from them into the river. Marie was captivated by the aroma of the chocolate river. This is truly a chocolate paradise. The prince handed Marie a small marshmallow boat and said, if we follow the river, we can see even more amazing sights. Marie climbed into the boat, her voice filled with excitement. This is so exciting, Prince. Let's go. They sailed down the chocolate river in the marshmallow boat. As they sailed, they passed various chocolate sculptures and fountains. The fountains continuously spouted chocolate, and the sculptures were carved into various forms. Marie couldn't contain her amazement. It's all so beautiful. I can't believe everything is made of chocolate. The prince then led her to the heart of the Land of Sweets, where a grand candy castle stood. The castle was made of cookies and cream, with towers decorated with candy. The gates were made of elaborate chocolate, adorned with sugar decorations that shimmered. Marie was in awe of the castle's grandeur. "This castle is magnificent. How did you create such a beautiful place?" The prince smiled and replied, "The residents of the Land of Sweets all worked together to build it. It's our pride and a symbol of peace and happiness." He opened the castle gates and guided Marie inside. Once inside, Marie was greeted by an even more astonishing sight. The interior was adorned with elaborate chocolate decorations and cream sculptures. The walls were decorated with all sorts of candies and jellies, and the floors were covered with soft marshmallows. The prince guided her through the various rooms of the castle, explaining, "This is the heart of the Land of Sweets, where our most precious treasures are kept. Each room is themed differently and made entirely of sweets and candies." Marie couldn't help but marvel at everything she saw. "This is truly amazing. Everything is so beautiful." After touring the Candy Castle, Marie and the prince decided to visit other locations in the Land of Sweets. The prince guided Marie to the Marshmallow Fields, Jelly Lake, and Candy Falls, showcasing the diverse landscapes of the Land of Sweets. Traveling with the prince, Marie felt like everything was a dream. The first place they arrived at was the Marshmallow Fields. The fields were covered with soft, fluffy marshmallows, giving the sensation of walking on clouds. Marie exclaimed with joy, "This place is fantastic. It feels like walking on clouds." She ran through the fields, reveling in the softness of the marshmallows. The prince smiled at her happiness. "Miss Marie, this is one of the most peaceful places in the Land of Sweets. Enjoy it to your heart's content." After enjoying the marshmallow fields, they moved on to Jelly Lake. The lake was filled with jellies of various colors, sparkling like jewels in the sunlight. Marie admired the scenery of the Jelly Lake. "It's so beautiful. The lake sparkles like jewels." The prince handed her a jelly boat and said, "You can explore the lake on this boat and enjoy the taste of the jellies." Marie boarded the boat, savoring the sweet jellies as she sailed around the lake. Next, they headed to Candy Falls. Candy Falls was a place where candies of various colors flowed like a waterfall. The air was filled with a sweet aroma, and the cascading candies sparkled like a rainbow. Marie was mesmerized by the beauty of Candy Falls. "This place is magical. The candies shine like a rainbow." The prince handed her a candy basket. "Fill this basket with candies. Each one has a special flavor." Marie spent a delightful time collecting and tasting the various candies. She and the prince laughed and enjoyed themselves under the Candy Falls. "These candies are so sweet and delicious. This place is truly a candy paradise." The prince smiled joyfully at her words. "Miss Marie, it makes me happy to see you so delighted. The Land of Sweets will always welcome you." The land of sweets was filled with scenes straight out of a fairy tale. Marie and the prince walked through the marshmallow fields, enjoying the sensation of walking on soft, fluffy marshmallows. The fields were adorned with marshmallows of various colors and sizes, creating a stunning panorama that sparkled in the sunlight. With each step, Marie felt the soft texture of the marshmallows beneath her feet and exclaimed with joy, "This place is like a dreamland. Everything is so beautiful." They proceeded from the marshmallow fields to Jelly Lake. The lake was filled with vibrant, rainbow-colored jelly, sparkling like gems in the sunlight. Along the shore, rows of jelly bears stood, and small jelly boats floated on the lake. Marie crossed the lake on a jelly boat, inhaling the sweet scent of the jelly. "This is truly beautiful. The lake sparkles like gems," she marveled. The prince shared the legend of Jelly Lake with Marie. "This lake is one of the most mysterious places in the land of sweets. According to legend, those who taste the jelly of this lake will find eternal happiness." Marie, inspired by the tale, tasted the jelly. It was incredibly sweet and smooth. "It's delicious. The jelly from this lake is indeed special." Next, they arrived at the Candy Falls. The Candy Falls were a place where candies of various colors flowed down like a waterfall. The air beneath the falls was filled with a sweet aroma, and the falling candies shone like a rainbow. Marie marveled at the beauty of the Candy Falls and said, "This place is truly magical. The candies shine like a rainbow." The prince handed her a candy basket and said, "Fill this basket with candies. All the candies here have special flavors." Marie spent a delightful time filling the basket with various candies. She and the prince tasted the candies under the Candy Falls, bursting into laughter. "They're so sweet and delicious. This place is truly a candy paradise." Marie spent a wonderful time exploring various places in Candyland with the prince. They roamed every corner of Candyland, enjoying the unique charm of each place. The first place they arrived at was the Marshmallow Field. The Marshmallow Field stretched endlessly, with soft and fluffy marshmallows underfoot. Colorful marshmallow flowers bloomed across the field, their sweet fragrance swaying gently in the breeze. Marie picked a marshmallow flower, inhaled its scent, and said, "These flowers are so beautiful. And they smell amazing." She carefully held the marshmallow flower in her hand, feeling its soft texture. Next, they headed to the Jelly Lake. The Jelly Lake was filled with sparkling rainbow-colored jelly, its surface glittering like jewels. Along the lake's edge stood jelly bears, who warmly welcomed Marie and the prince. "Miss Marie, this place is truly magical. The Jelly Lake symbolizes happiness and peace," the prince said, handing Marie a jelly boat. Marie boarded the jelly boat and sailed across the lake, savoring the sweet aroma of the jelly. They crossed the jelly lake and headed towards the heart of Candyland, where a massive chocolate palace stood. The palace walls were made of rich chocolate, adorned with brilliant sugar decorations. As they opened the palace doors, an even more astonishing sight greeted Marie. The interior of the palace was filled with various chocolate sculptures and cream decorations. The floor was covered with soft marshmallow carpets, and the ceiling sparkled with candy chandeliers. The prince guided Marie through the various rooms of the palace. The first room was the Candy Museum, showcasing the history and culture of Candyland through a variety of candies. Marie marveled at the exhibits in the Candy Museum. "These candies are so beautiful. And each one has its own story," she said. The prince explained the history of the Candy Museum to Marie. "These candies embody the history of Candyland. Each one is a precious legacy left by our ancestors." Next, they headed to the Cream Garden. The Cream Garden was filled with trees and flowers made of soft cream. In the center of the garden, a cream fountain was gushing, and around the fountain, small cream-made animals were playing. Marie admired the beauty of the Cream Garden and said, "This place is truly enchanting. Everything looks so soft and sweet." The prince handed her a cream flower and said, "This flower is made from special cream. Try it." Marie took a bite of the cream flower, smiling at its soft and sweet taste. They continued to explore Candyland, visiting various places. In the candy forest, giant candy trees stretched high into the sky, their branches laden with colorful candies. Marie spent a delightful time picking and eating candies from the trees. "These candies are so delicious. And picking them straight from the tree makes it even more special," she said joyfully. Another charming place in Candyland was the Chocolate Falls. The Chocolate Falls flowed with rich, continuous streams of chocolate, and around it, a chocolate river ran. Marie stood under the Chocolate Falls, catching and eating the flowing chocolate with a happy smile. "This chocolate is so tasty. And such a beautiful waterfall, it's unbelievable," she said with emotion. Marie and the prince explored many places in Candyland, tasting various candies and sweets at each stop. They enjoyed every moment, sharing stories and happiness. Marie couldn't help but marvel at the beauty and enchantment of Candyland. "This place is truly magical. Everything is so beautiful and sweet," she said with a joyful voice. The prince smiled warmly at her words. "Miss Marie, your happiness brings great joy to Candyland. You are always welcome to visit and enjoy your time here," he said sincerely. The residents of Candyland warmly welcomed Marie and the Nutcracker. They praised Marie's courage and love, presenting her with various candies and sweets as gifts. The central square of Candyland was adorned with welcoming decorations, and the residents greeted Marie and the Nutcracker with cheers. Marie was deeply moved by their warm reception. The square was decorated with colorful ribbons and balloons, and flags adorned with various candies fluttered in the wind. In the center was a chocolate fountain, continuously flowing with rich chocolate and spreading a sweet aroma. Around the square, numerous candy booths were set up, where residents offered Marie a variety of sweets and candies. At the first booth, Marie received a candy cane. The booth owner smiled brightly and said, "Miss Marie, this candy cane is one of the most popular snacks in our village. Please try it." Marie took a bite of the candy cane and marveled at its sweetness. "It's delicious. I've never had such a tasty candy before." The booth owner, beaming with joy, responded, "Miss Marie, we are deeply grateful for your bravery. Candyland will always welcome you." At the next booth, she was gifted a cream pie. The pie was filled with soft, sweet cream and topped with fresh fruits. The booth owner handed the pie to Marie and said, "This cream pie is made with a special recipe from our village. Please try it." Marie took a bite and was impressed by its soft, sweet taste. "It's fantastic. I've never had such a delicious pie before." The booth owner smiled and replied, "Miss Marie, we are deeply thankful for your courage and love. Candyland will always welcome you." The residents of Candyland prepared various performances to welcome Marie and the Nutcracker. In the center of the square, residents danced and sang, and Marie enjoyed their performances. "These performances are wonderful. Thank you all for your warm welcome," she said with a joyful voice. Marie and the Nutcracker visited the different booths, tasting various candies and sweets. At the chocolate booth, they sampled chocolates of different flavors and shapes. At the jelly booth, they enjoyed colorful jellies, and at the marshmallow booth, they savored soft and sweet marshmallows. As Marie tasted the treats at each booth, she said joyfully, "All these sweets are so delicious. Candyland is truly a paradise of sweets." The Nutcracker stayed by her side, always protecting her. He recommended various sweets to Marie, enjoying every moment in Candyland with her. "Miss Marie, this chocolate is made with special ingredients. Please try it," he said. Marie took a bite and marveled at the taste. "It's delicious. I'm glad I took your recommendation." The residents of Candyland prepared a special event for Marie and the Nutcracker. They commemorated Marie's courage and love by presenting her with a special gift. In the center of the square, there was a large chocolate cake with the words "Marie, our hero" inscribed on it. The residents gathered around Marie and joyfully exclaimed, "Miss Marie, we are deeply grateful for your courage and love. This cake is for you." Marie was deeply moved by their warm welcome and gift. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Thank you so much. I am deeply touched by your welcome. I will never forget any of you." The residents responded with bright smiles, saying, "Miss Marie, you are our hero. Please come to Candyland anytime and enjoy yourself." Marie savored every moment in Candyland, embracing the happiness that surrounded her. The residents of Candyland treated her as a special guest, providing her with the highest hospitality. Marie and the Nutcracker explored every corner of Candyland, cherishing every moment. Their first destination was the Candy Forest. The forest was filled with tall candy trees and colorful jelly bushes. The branches of the trees were laden with various candies, and the jelly bushes were covered in jellies of different flavors and colors. Marie spent a delightful time picking and tasting candies from the candy trees. These candies are so delicious. I've never tasted anything like them, she exclaimed with joy. The Nutcracker handed Marie a special candy, saying, "Miss Marie, this candy has a special magic. Try it." Marie took a bite of the candy and immediately felt her body becoming lighter. "This is incredible. I feel so light," she said, astonished. The Nutcracker smiled and explained, "This candy makes your body light. Now, we can fly around and explore the Candy Forest." Marie and the Nutcracker flew around the Candy Forest, exploring every nook and cranny. They climbed to the tops of the candy trees, tasting various candies, and soared through the jelly bushes, savoring the sweet aroma of the jellies. Every moment felt like a dream to Marie. "Everything here is so beautiful. Candyland is truly enchanting," she said, her voice filled with awe. Next, they visited the Chocolate Village. The village was filled with houses and shops made of rich chocolate. In the center of the village was a chocolate fountain, continuously flowing with creamy chocolate. The villagers wore clothes made of chocolate, and their skin looked smooth and glossy like chocolate. Marie greeted the villagers and received their warm hospitality. In the village's chocolate shop, a variety of chocolates were displayed. Marie tasted different chocolates, enjoying the delightful flavors. "These chocolates are so tasty. I've never had such a variety of flavors before," she said joyfully. The shopkeeper smiled and replied, "Miss Marie, these chocolates are made with special recipes. Please enjoy as much as you like." They explored various places in the chocolate village, admiring the intricate chocolate creations. In the center of the village stood a gigantic chocolate castle, crafted with astonishing detail. Marie was in awe as she gazed at the castle. "This castle is incredible. I've never seen such a detailed chocolate creation before," she said, her voice filled with wonder. The Nutcracker explained the history of the castle to her. "This castle is the work of Candyland's finest artists. They dedicated a long time and great care to creating this masterpiece." Marie cherished her time in the chocolate village. She mingled with the villagers, listening to their stories and enjoying their company. "Every moment here is so happy. I am deeply grateful to all of you," she said sincerely. The villagers greeted her with bright smiles. "Miss Marie, we deeply appreciate your courage and love. Please visit the Chocolate Village anytime and enjoy your stay." In Candyland, a grand festival was held in honor of Marie and the Nutcracker. The festival was a large-scale event involving all the residents of Candyland, filled with colorful decorations and music. The residents celebrated Marie and the Nutcracker's courage and love, giving them a warm welcome. The square where the festival took place was adorned with colorful ribbons, balloons, and candy decorations. In the center of the square stood a giant chocolate fountain, continuously flowing with rich chocolate and filling the air with its sweet aroma. Surrounding the square were various booths made of candy and sweets, where residents offered their homemade treats. The festival began with a spectacular parade. The parade traveled through the heart of Candyland, with residents dressed in vibrant costumes marching alongside decorated floats. The floats featured enormous candy sculptures, chocolate carriages, and jelly bears, while residents handed out candies and sweets to the crowd. Leading the parade, Marie and the Nutcracker marched together, enjoying the festivities with all the residents. "This parade is wonderful. Thank you all for such a warm welcome," she said joyfully. After the parade, a variety of performances took place on the central stage in the square. Candyland residents showcased dances, songs, and magic shows. The first performance was a dance by the Jelly Bears. Dressed in colorful jelly outfits, the Jelly Bears danced gracefully to lively music, moving as smoothly and flexibly as jelly. Marie watched in amazement. "Their dance is fantastic. I never imagined jelly bears could dance so well." Next came a singing performance by the Candy Fairies. With their beautiful voices, they sang sweet melodies that sounded as soft and sugary as candy. Marie smiled happily as she listened to their songs. "Their voices are so beautiful. This song feels as sweet as eating candy," she said, her voice filled with emotion. The magic show was presented by the Chocolate Wizards. Using various chocolate tools, they performed incredible magic tricks. One chocolate wizard conjured chocolate out of thin air, making it float freely in the air. Marie was astonished by his magic. "His magic is amazing. I can't believe how he can control chocolate so effortlessly," she said, her voice full of wonder. After the performances, the residents of Candyland prepared a special banquet for Marie and the Nutcracker. The banquet was held at a massive table set in the center of the square. The table was laden with an array of candies, chocolates, jellies, and other sweets. Marie enjoyed tasting all the delicious treats. "Everything tastes so wonderful. Candyland truly is a paradise of sweets," she said with delight. The Prince of Candyland had a special gift for Marie. "Miss Marie, we are deeply grateful for your courage and love. This gift is one of Candyland's most precious treasures," he said, handing her a small box. When Marie opened the box, she found a sparkling chocolate crown inside. "This crown is a special symbol of Candyland. We present it to you in honor of your courage and love." Marie was moved to tears as she accepted the gift. "Thank you so much. I will cherish this crown forever. I am deeply grateful to everyone in Candyland, she said, her voice filled with emotion. The residents cheered and applauded. Miss Marie, you are our hero. Please visit Candyland anytime and have a wonderful time, they said. The festival continued late into the night. Candyland's night was illuminated by a dazzling fireworks display. The sky was filled with colorful fireworks, creating a breathtaking spectacle. As Marie watched the fireworks with the Nutcracker, she said, "Every moment here has been so happy. These fireworks are so beautiful." The Nutcracker smiled and replied, "Miss Marie, your happiness brings us great joy." After the festival, Marie and the Nutcracker took a quiet walk through the forest. The forest was filled with various candy and sweet trees, looking like a scene straight out of a fairy tale. The sky was painted a dusky pink, and a gentle breeze carried sweet fragrances through the air. As they walked, Marie and the Nutcracker talked to each other. "This place is so peaceful and beautiful. I'm so happy to be here with you," Marie said to the Nutcracker tenderly, her eyes full of sincerity. The Nutcracker gently held her hand and smiled. "Miss Marie, I am also happy to be with you." As they walked through the forest, they encountered a variety of candy and sweet trees. Cream-covered trees had soft, flowing cream, and the jelly bushes sparkled with vibrant colors, decorating the forest. Marie touched the different candy trees, feeling their soft texture. "Everything here is so amazing. Candyland is truly magical," she said, her voice filled with wonder. They arrived at a field filled with blooming marshmallow flowers. The field was covered with soft marshmallow flowers, swaying gently in the breeze and releasing a sweet fragrance. Marie picked up a marshmallow flower and inhaled its scent, smiling happily. "These flowers are so beautiful. And they smell wonderful," she said, enjoying the soft touch of the marshmallow petals. The Nutcracker made a small bouquet of marshmallow flowers for Marie. "Miss Marie, this bouquet is for you," he said, handing her the bouquet with a warm smile. Marie was moved to tears as she accepted the bouquet. "Thank you so much, Nutcracker. I will cherish this bouquet forever," she said, holding his hand tightly. They walked past the marshmallow field and headed towards the Jelly River. The Jelly River was filled with shimmering, rainbow-colored jelly, and its surface sparkled like jewels. Marie and the Nutcracker sat by the riverbank, watching the river. Jelly bears were playing along the riverbank and greeted Marie and the Nutcracker warmly. "Miss Marie, these jelly bears are very kind and friendly," the Nutcracker explained. The jelly bears offered sweet jellies to Marie and the Nutcracker. "These jellies are special, made from our Jelly River. Please try some," one of the jelly bears said. Marie took a bite of the jelly and was delighted by its sweetness. "This is delicious. "These jellies are really special," she said, her voice filled with joy. They spent time by the jelly river, playing with the jelly bears. Marie laughed and chatted with the bears, enjoying every moment. "Every moment here is so happy. Thank you all so much," she said sincerely. The jelly bears smiled brightly at her words. "Miss Marie, your happiness brings us great joy. Please visit the Jelly River anytime and have a wonderful time." All the adventures and activities in Candyland began to tire Marie. She started to feel increasingly weary, and the Nutcracker noticed her condition with concern. "Miss Marie, you look tired. How about taking a little rest?" he suggested, his voice filled with worry and care. Marie nodded in agreement. "Yes, I think I need to rest for a bit. It has been a lot." The Nutcracker led Marie to a cozy resting place, complete with a soft marshmallow bed and a warm chocolate blanket. Marie lay down and felt the comfort wash over her. "This place is so comfortable. I think a little rest will help me regain my strength," she said with a warm smile. The Nutcracker stayed by her side, ensuring she felt safe. "Rest well, Miss Marie. I'll be right here watching over you," he said, his voice full of sincere care. Feeling reassured by his words, Marie closed her eyes and drifted into a deep sleep on the soft marshmallow bed. Her heart was filled with peace, and even in her dreams, she could feel the beauty of Candyland. She slept deeply, surrounded by sweet fragrances and comforting warmth. After a while, Marie awoke, feeling wonderfully refreshed. She felt lighter and saw the Nutcracker still by her side, watching over her. "Miss Marie, did you have a good rest?" he asked gently. Marie smiled and nodded. "Yes, I had a great rest. I feel ready to go again." Marie, along with the Nutcracker, prepared to bid farewell to the residents of Candyland and return to reality. The town square was filled with residents who had gathered to say goodbye to Marie and the Nutcracker. Their faces were full of gratitude and sadness, and they had prepared small gifts for Marie. The Prince of Candyland approached Marie to say his final goodbye. "Miss Marie, we are deeply grateful for your courage and love. You will always be a cherished guest in Candyland. Please come back anytime," he said, his voice brimming with heartfelt gratitude and affection. He handed Marie a small chocolate key. "This key opens the door to Candyland. Use it to return whenever you wish." Marie was deeply moved as she accepted the key. The chocolate key was intricately carved and adorned with shimmering gold leaf. She held the key tightly and bowed to the prince. "Thank you so much. I will cherish this key forever," she said, holding the key close to her heart. The residents presented Marie with various candies and sweets as tokens of their appreciation. The jelly bears gave her a special jelly box, the candy fairies offered a vibrant candy bouquet, and the chocolate wizards gifted her a magical chocolate piece. Miss Marie, thank you for your courage and love. Please visit Candyland again and enjoy your time here, the residents said warmly. Marie was deeply touched by their words. She shed tears of gratitude and said, "Thank you all so much. I will never forget any of you." The Nutcracker stood by her side, always watching over her. "Miss Marie, it's time to go back. Cherish every moment we had here, and look forward to the day we meet again," he said kindly. Marie held his hand tightly and nodded. "Yes, Nutcracker. Every moment with you has been precious." Marie and the Nutcracker completed their preparations to leave Candyland and return to reality. They crossed the border of Candyland and looked back one last time. The beautiful scenery of Candyland and the warm welcome from its residents were deeply imprinted in her heart. "This place is like a dream. I want to come back," she whispered. Back in reality, Marie woke up in her room. She saw the Nutcracker lying beside her. She picked him up and smiled. "It was such a fantastic dream. Every moment with you was truly precious," she said affectionately to the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker, still and silent, seemed to smile back at her, his presence a reminder of their magical adventure. The next morning, Marie woke up in her room. As soon as she rubbed her eyes and got out of bed, she remembered the dream she had last night. Filled with excitement, she grabbed the Nutcracker and ran to the living room where her family was having breakfast. Marie jumped up and ran to her mother, exclaiming loudly, "Mom, I had the most amazing dream. I went to Candyland." Her mother smiled and patted Marie's head. "Marie, that sounds like a wonderful dream," she said, listening intently to her daughter's story. Marie vividly described her adventures from the previous night. In Candyland, the Nutcracker came to life. "We fought off an army of mice, enjoyed a grand festival, and the Prince of Candyland gave me a chocolate key as a gift." Her mother smiled, thinking it was just a dream. "That sounds incredible, Marie. Candyland must be a magical place," she said, marveling at Marie's detailed story. Although Marie knew her mother didn't believe it was real, she wasn't upset. She knew that every moment she experienced was real. After finishing breakfast, Marie showed her family the chocolate key she had brought back from Candyland. The key was still shining and intricately carved. Her family was amazed. Her father held the key and admired it. "It's a beautiful key, Marie. Your experiences there must have been very special," he said. Marie nodded and smiled. "Yes, every moment in Candyland was precious. The experiences there gave me great courage and love. After breakfast, Marie returned to her room, holding the Nutcracker close. She carefully placed him down and gazed at him. The Nutcracker remained still, but his eyes seemed to sparkle as if he had truly been on the adventure with her. Marie whispered to him, "Nutcracker, we really did go to Candyland, didn't we?" In that moment, Marie felt deep inside that everything had been real. Her heart was filled with unforgettable memories and a warm love for the Nutcracker. She hugged the Nutcracker tightly, smiling as she recalled the adventures of that day. Marie whispered to herself, "It wasn't just a dream. Candyland truly exists." She hugged the Nutcracker, cherishing the warm feeling. She felt as if she could return to Candyland at any time, holding on to those cherished memories. From then on, Marie spent a lot of time with the Nutcracker. She would tell him stories every day and promised herself never to forget their adventures. Marie learned great courage and love from her experiences in Candyland and came to treasure her friendship with the Nutcracker even more. Nutcracker, every moment with you is the most precious moment of my life. I'm so happy to always be with you, she whispered affectionately to him. Although Marie's adventure ended, the beauty and warmth of Candyland always remained in her heart. Candyland is always in my heart. Every moment there was so precious, she said with a smile. The Nutcracker promised to always be by her side. Miss Marie, I will always be with you. Your courage and love saved us all. Marie's story ends here, but her adventure lives on in her heart. Candyland is always in my heart. Knowing that I can return anytime makes me so happy, she said, smiling. Every moment with the Nutcracker was the most precious of her life. Nutcracker, I'm so happy to always be with you. You are my true friend, she said, hugging the Nutcracker tightly and smiling warmly.